Welcome to Taiwan Talk on ICRT. I'm Ryan Drillsma.
Today I talk to electronic music producer and DJ Chenta Tsai, a.k.a. PCM, about how politics and society has influenced his music.
Can you tell me the reason behind your choice of performance name, PCM?
Well, PCM comes from or is inspired by the queer theory, taking a word that is hegemonically understood as something bad and turning it into a tool of resistance, no, or a political tool of resistance. And in some way, I used it in the same way to empower myself and to revert or to neutralize as a word that hurt me for a very long time in reality.
Growing up as a queer Taiwanese person in Spain, did you feel like you faced a lot of adversity?
At first I didn't know how to name it, no? So at first I just thought that it was a personal problem until I discovered that what I was experiencing, my vital experiences were shared. And it wasn't, for example, a problem of mine, but it was racism, it was homophobia. So yeah, when I started labeling it and seeing the broader picture, that's when I started to cartograph my experiences.
Do you think your experiences with this impacted the music that you produce?
100%. I feel like, want it or not, my music and the way I write music is going to be experienced by my vital experiences, no, as a non-hegemonic body growing up in Europe. So and I also recur to humor a lot in my performances because I do feel like humor has always been a tool of resistance that has been used throughout history in LGBTQ plus communities, no? Como se llama, like Divine, John Waters, all the gay LGBTQ plus icons that have used humor to empower themselves and to reclaim, no? O sea, their place in this world.
How would you describe your music style?
Well, I think it's ever-changing, no? O sea, at first, I think I identified myself more with hyperpop, electropop, but little by little, I am discovering like new boundaries, new territories. So I think it's ever-changing, to be honest. In Spain, the convenience stores are usually opened by East Asian people, no? So that's why there's this stereotype of calling bazaars, these places, as Chinese. So that's why there's like this negative connotation that's a little bit racist. So that's why I kind of reclaimed it as well, and I always say that my music would be played in the year 3000 in bazaars, no, in Spain, so that's why.
Do you have any major musical influences?
Yes, I think I'm very inspired by hyperpop especially. I'm very inspired by PC music. I'm very inspired by this movement in Spain that is called costumbrismo mamarratismo, which is in some way inspired by Almodóvar. No, o sea, the Almodóvar genre, the Almodóvar style of exposing or como beautifying day-to-day mundane activities, no? Like, for example, I don't know, peeing in a toilet with the door open and and your dog is watching you. That is costumbrista, that is mamarratismo, but taking it to an artistic ground, no? And now I'm exploring Chinese folklore, especially because in some way I want to connect with that part of mine, which I feel like I've always neglected. And that's why I came back to Taiwan in reality this year.
You've released 2 albums so far. Could you talk about perhaps the lyrical content or the themes?
The first EP was very punk. It came from a very punk DIY background. And in reality, all these songs talk about mundane objects, no? Going back to costumbrismo and to irreverence and subversiveness. For example, there's a song called No Tengo Wi-Fi, which is I have no Wi-Fi, no? Which in some way comes from a very like ironic place where I kind of wanted to laugh at these like romantic like songs that glorify the romantic love, no? And I said, what if we took this idea and glorify technology, no? And by using the same patterns as a lot of musicians, artists use when they're talking about love, no? El Desde la Brava y la Super Pop, the Bravo and Super Pop are like teen magazines very popular teen magazines in Spain. And basically what I'm talking about is how these magazines that are so cis heterosexual have nurtured us to believe that there's only one way of loving, that the way of understanding ourselves is very binary, is very misogynistic, no? And in some way it's like laughing a bit at these magazines with a very pop instrumental, with a very pop curation, no?
For someone that doesn't understand Spanish, even though your music carries a very angry message, it sounds quite playful or quite whimsical. Is that a conscious decision?
Totally. I think that this contradiction is what I am constantly playing. I feel like I always play with contradictions. That forms an integral part of my art, no? Right now pop is going through a very interesting como direction, but digamos 90s and like the noughties pop was always like very vacuous, no? Very banal. It never had any political or social commentary content. And in some way I wanted to use this tool that is so powerful and reaches to so many people and use it in a very deliberate and political and social commentary way. So yeah, in some way I found it very funny to use like such a banal tool, which at the same time is so powerful, and give it content, no? Give it a very queer, political, ironic, parodic content. So that's why.
If someone came to one of your DJ shows, what could they expect to see? Do you tend to do different things every time?
Totally. I do feel like when I DJ, I want to explore more the current space, whilst when I don't know, it comes from very different places, no? When you give a concert, people actually go to listen to your music, so there's more restrictions, no? With that. But when you're DJing, in some way I feel like you're orchestrating a space, and I'm still figuring out how the subculture and how the nightlife works in Taiwan. Because for example, I play a lot of reggaeton, I play a lot of techno, a lot of hyperpop, which in Spain, in the Spanish context, makes a lot of sense. And for example, I found it very surprising, for example, like when I play Gasolina here and no one is perreando. Perreando es como, it's like, I don't know if it's like moving your butt. It's a bit like twerking, but not exactly. And claro, o sea, when I was putting like Gasolina, or when I put Tomás El Real, or these like iconic like reggaeton artists in Taiwan, I was a bit surprised that no one was dancing to that. So I'm still figuring out what type of music, no, what type of space do Taiwanese people want to listen to, want to inhabit, you know?
From your experience so far, how would you compare the Taiwanese electronic music scene to Spain, where you're used to playing?
I feel like Taiwan is so eclectic in so many ways, and I think that's so beautiful because in some way I feel like the Spanish electronic scene is very small and it's very, very potent. Also, I have so much admiration for it. But I feel that in Taiwan they're more open to experimenting with everything.
Are you currently working with any Taiwanese artists, or do you have plans to?
I've spoken to Hush about it already, and but we still need to like sit down and write that song. But I've already sent them a few demos, and they wanted to work on one of the demos that I sent them. I am also working with more underground artists, no, like Sonia Calico, which is amazing. Also, I love how, I don't know, I just feel like she's creating such an important space and redefining como what I was talking about, like mixing Chinese folklore, Taiwanese folklore with electronic music. But in reality, right now, I am super open to collaborating. O sea, later right now, I'm giving myself the opportunity to produce music for artists that I admire, no? Like, for example, GFOTY. I've worked with Dorian Electra. I'm remixing and working with Pussy Riot. So in some way, I want to open this como gateway, no, of like a artistic communication, artistic exchange, because I feel like I've never opened this road yet, and especially because everything has gone so quick. So in reality, I've only been in this industry for 3 years, and it's so little in reality. O sea, and I feel very fortunate, and I feel very lucky to have to be where I am right now, especially being a QPOC artist growing up in Spain. So if I tell you that I am the first, one of the first East Asian artists to be signed, no, so that is very, I don't know, that just gives you an idea of the landscape of the situation, the current situation in Spain. So because apart from me, there was another artist in the 90s that was called Los Piston, who was also Taiwanese and is more well known over here, I think. They actually opened Uyue Tian, and they were actually very well known as well in Spain. And since then, there were no other like East Asian artists. So just to give you like an example, no, of how Spain como functions, because claro, o sea, if you compare it with UK, es que UK has so much history in reality. O sea, now UK has so much como infrastructure, like I don't know, like Eastern Margins, no, o sea, or Bauman Tiger. There's so many East Asian artists rising right now in the UK scene. Whilst in Spain, o sea, there's still so few East Asian artists, and if there are, they're very heterosexual. And the music they make, I can't feel related to it, because it still goes through a very como heterosexual, misogynistic, patriarchal como perspective, no? So yeah.
So what are you currently working on now that you're back in Taiwan?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I am working on myself right now because I feel like I have so much to learn, and in some way I came to Taiwan to learn, because I feel like the subculture scene, especially the LGBT plus scene, is so interesting, and I just want to give myself the opportunity to be a spectator of what's happening here, no? O sea, what I told you last time, I am completely flabbergasted by the scene in Taiwan, because despite Taiwan being so small in comparison to other countries, I feel like the queer, trans, LGBT plus scene is so big and is so nurtured and so consolidated, and I feel very proud to see that, no? O sea, to see that the place where I was born is like brewing such an important scene. So yeah, in some way, right now I'm giving myself the chance to be a spectator and to absorb different concepts, to understand myself looking at other people. I am taking this time to write music and to write my next album, which I am still figuring out what the soundscape is going to be. Because, for example, I am going through a very hyperpop, glitch pop place, but I also want to explore like singing in Chinese or singing in English, because I do feel like neglecting this part of mine in some way is like being inauthentic to myself, no? Because at first I only sang in Spanish because it was, well, the most intuitive way, because I was in the context of Spain. And in some way, I feel like Spanish people usually consume music that is Spanish in that sense.
If people want to listen to your music, where can they find you?
You can listen to me in Spotify and in Instagram. So yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Taiwan Talk. I'll see you next time.